March 1st, 2023. This is the 2000 tick chart on the S&P 500 E-Futures Mini on the Thinkorswim platform. You don't have to watch this entire video if you just want to know where I took my trades or where I think I saw things that were interesting. Just go down to the description where things are timestamped to the video. So this is what the chart looked like today. It was a pretty choppy day. Even though they had these big swings up and down, it was hard to get a good entry to actually ride these all the way down. So you kind of had to take an entry if you wanted to try to ride this down and hope. But I don't like to trade on hope. So this is how I drew up my charts today, including all the trades I took. I took a total of 12 trades today. I definitely overtraded. 9 were green and 3 were red. Let me just get rid of these guys real quick. Now, I also took 3 kind of stupid trades, I would say, or foolish trades that were based off of no setups and just because I wanted to take the trade, which is never a good idea or never a good reason. And as you can see, the blue indicators are where I took the trades. And I took a bunch of trades back here. I think it was because I had waited so long throughout the day. And up until the first 3 trades, I was green. The 4th trade, I was also green. But down here, just waiting, I think I got impatient, emotional, and I broke some rules. So I'll get into those as soon as I get there. And I'm going to try to make the video as quick as I can. Now, it was hard to find an actual trading range because if you drew from the top and the bottom of the pre-market, then you're actually going to see that it violates it because it doesn't respect this line. And when it comes back to here, it doesn't make it all the way back to the top. So if you drew a trend line here, there's no confirmation. And finally, if you drew one kind of right down here, you do get a confirmation here, but it doesn't confirm on the bottom. Also, if you drew another trend line here, you can have an overshoot here, but then again, it doesn't really have a good clean trading range at the bottom. Now, I did have these smaller congestion areas drawn and was working off of those. But overall, it was kind of a tricky trading day for me. Even though I traded 12 trades, as I said, they're all pretty overtraded for sure. And before I get into this, I'll just kind of say this choppiness resembled the choppiness from yesterday, except today it almost looked like it was trying to get a trading range established, but it never really got there. So today was kind of junky like it was yesterday. This is a pre-market. I kind of drew this trend channel going up, and then let's just get into the trade so this video doesn't take too long. So prices are moving. I do see it's in this trading range here. There's no real bias at this point because I think the day might just be like yesterday, a big trading range from down here to up here. But afterwards, when it violated the bottom so many times, I just kind of got rid of it. I just worked off of these smaller trading ranges. So trading there wasn't any good setup until I got to about here where I saw first new high, first entry long, second entry long. Now this first entry long, second entry long, I didn't really like this particular setup just because this signal bar isn't very good. Neither of these signal bars are very good. It closed at the bottom, but if I waited a little bit and it shot up, I took this trade. I saw a higher low. Now, granted, it is breaking out of this trading range. It had a failed breakout. It came back in, and now it's potentially another failed breakout. But I like that this candle was pretty decent. So I thought, okay, well, this is actually worth a trade, worth an entry because it's confirming the second entry long. So I took that trade. It was profitable. It's green, and it looked like it would have ran up pretty nicely. But I got stopped out of my runner because I got my entry here, and then I moved my runner to break even, and then it got stopped out on this candle, which is okay because originally the stop was down here. And when I move it up to break even, this candle stopped me out, but you don't know that this candle might not come all the way back down and pretty much take out your runner, which would be kind of depressing because you got profit and then the runner is the one that takes away all your profit. So in this case, the runner just turned out to be a break-even trade. Prices continue moving down. It's getting a little choppy. There was an announcement today by, let's see, the announcement today, or the catalyst, I think, was the consumer confidence came out at 7 a.m. So right around here, I'm trying not to enter any trades because it gets very choppy and whippy, which you can see here. Notice this is all within a span of 2 minutes. So I'm continuing sitting here, I'm watching prices move, and I do see a new low, first entry short, second entry short, but I don't like this second entry short because it's too far from the EMA. I do establish that there's a trend channel going down here, but even though it's kind of bouncing off of this, it's not really that gives me too much confidence because the touches were up here and it's a little bit of a reach down here. Had it actually gone up to the EMA, then there might have been a trade there. It does make a confirmed lower high, but it's just too far from the EMA. It's already pushing down into the lows of this. And I was thinking if there's a potential triple test, it might bounce right back up. So I wasn't sure if this has actually become a true second entry short or a failed second entry short. So I just kind of left it alone. Prices continue moving down. I just kind of sit and watch. It's entering another trading range. Now this big yellow line is actually the 200 simple moving average, 200-day simple moving average. Now, even though a lot of price action trading, you don't really take this into account, I do like to have it on my screen just because I know, even though if you're just trading the tick chart and you're only looking at price action with the 21 EMA, there are other traders out there, probably a whole bunch of them, that will take into consideration the 200 as well as the 100 simple moving average on the daily. So I like to have it here just to see if there's any other reaction to it, especially if there's like a second entry that might look a little sketchy. It might give me a little more confidence to take a trade if it's coming up off of this 200 SMA and might create a bounce on the daily, or 200 SMA on the daily might create a bounce of some kind. So I just like to have it there. I don't use it as a dominating reason to take a trade though, but it's just more of an extra confirmation. I do see a triple test here. I do take this trade. Now, this is a triple test here because it bounced off the EMA. It's also outside the trading range here because it broke out, came back in. It looked like it wanted to go back in, but it bounced up, so I like that. Came down a second time, and it bounced. So the second time it bounced, but these are all closing bearish, and this one closed bullish, so I like that. It was a triple test. It was bounced off the EMA. It's outside of this trading range. Granted, it is a little bit aggressive because it is counter trend to this big trend coming down. But you could also argue that this might be in a trading range, but you don't know that for sure. So I thought it was worth a shot to take this trade. And it turned out to be pretty good because I noticed there was like a triple test. It looked like this is kind of holding as well as the EMA is giving a little bit of support. Prices continue moving. Prices go up. Unfortunately, I saw this big move and I didn't see a good entry because I was thinking this could be a new high, first entry long, second entry long, or I could have counted together first entry long and a second entry long, but you would have gotten stopped out here. So there's just too much confusion here for me to see confidently that was a good trade to be taken. That's okay. Prices continue moving up. And this is where I take my third trade of the day. So I see, okay, it broke up. It came down and it's in this trading range when I established, it was actually a little bit higher. It's actually up to here at the time. And I saw, okay, it kind of came down, touched, and it came down a second time, touched, and blasted up. And I saw, okay, this is potentially a triple test. I also like that it was bouncing off the EMA and there was enough room for a scalp to the top of this trading range. And it looked like it was a repeat of this setup right here, except on this one, it was coming from the bottom. After a big move down, coming from the bottom, it did 2-3 touches, so triple test. And the same thing here, except it's coming from the bottom, but this time the bottom is coming up a little more strongly. So it's 1-2-3 test. And that's how I felt a little more confident about taking this particular setup. Then prices continue moving. I actually drag this down later to about here. Prices broke down. Now it's like breaking through here. I didn't see a good entry to have taken this because this is potentially a new low, first entry short, and then it just kind of goes down without you. You could say this is a lower high, but it's so far from the EMA, and there's really no second entry confirmation except for maybe here lower high at a second entry, but it's too far from the EMA, so I left that one alone. Prices continue moving down. Creates a new trading range here. It's a pretty short one. It makes a new low. You don't know this is going to be the low of the day. This is where the 200 simple moving average is on the daily. And most people, even if they don't trade really the way price action trades, they will take in consideration that's like a strong support. And I did see like a measured move from this down, and then I drew this one down. So it's a measured move, and I'd have this dotted line to see where it might be. And it was about right here, as well as there's another measured move here and here. But it was just kind of something I had in mind. That's what this yellow line was. Prices continue moving. goes up, it goes into this trading range. And then I do see a second entry short here because you could take this as a new low. First entry short just barely ticks, almost ticks the same level. It would have been a double bottom. First entry short, second entry short, and then it fails. Now, even though it's a second entry short failed second entry short, it bounced off the EMA. I didn't like that the closing of this signal bar was kind of bearish, and it's also in the middle of this trading range. Now, granted, you could use those as two reasons to go long, but I wasn't really sure, due to my inexperience, I guess, that I didn't like that this bar closed. And then when this trigger bar went up and came down and closed here, had it closed a little bit higher, I would have felt more confident taking the trade. So then by the time this bar forms and closes, I felt it was too late just because it's already at the top of this trading range. This trading range broke, came back in, broke, came back in. And the break to take a short would have been risky because it looks like it's going with bias. But then to take a long, I felt was risky because I don't know if this trading range was still going to dominate. So I skip the trade. Prices continue moving up. Kind of goes into this other consolidation. This is where I take my, I guess, fourth trade. There's a new low, first entry short, second entry short. I like that this candle is bearish, but it closed right at the EMA. So this is kind of a judgment call. I did have this trading range a little bit lower, kind of like a little bit lower right here at the time. So I thought it could potentially be a failed breakout, and there's enough room back down to the bottom of the trading range, which is about right here at the time. So I went for it. Turned out to be a green trade, even though I didn't think the signal bar had actually closed a little lower, then I think it would have been a little more confidence, but it closed right at the EMA, and so I took the chance. Prices continue chopping sideways. Now it breaks down. I do see a pretty good setup right here. I see a new low, first entry short, second entry short. Now this actually, I missed this trade, unfortunately, because this trade looks like it's a good signal bar. It's closing very bearish. Right now, the EMA is being respected. It broke out of this trading range. It made one attempt to come back in, but it failed. Now it's making a second attempt. Second attempt looks like it's not going to work because it came up, it failed, and it closed low. So I thought this was a pretty good trade to have taken, but unfortunately, when this bar was forming, I hesitated. So when I finally put my entry one tick below, this was already way down here and closing itself out. So when it closed out here, for sure, I'm not going to chase it because it's going to hit the bottom of this potential trading range. And it's also hitting the localized low of this price action. So unfortunately, that was a good trade I think I missed. Prices continue moving down. I draw this descending channel now. Kind of have one touch, two touch, three touch, and then a couple of touches here. So I thought, okay, this is a pretty valid channel to play off of. This is also another trade that I thought was worthwhile, but I also missed this one because it's a new low, first entry short, second entry short. This is a very nice signal bar. Now, it's the first time it broke out of this trading channel, but it broke out and made one attempt to go high. It looks like it pulled back, and this is a second attempt to go high. Not only that, this trading range looks like it's pretty consolidated, pretty congested. So I thought this trade was worth taking, but I also didn't see the setup in time. I think I was away from my desk or I was looking at something else, and unfortunately, that trade would have worked out pretty well. Prices continue moving down. It's chopping sideways. And this is where I took, let's see. Okay, so this is where I took a bad trade. So what I see here, this is my fifth trade. I see a new high, first entry long, second entry long. Now, when I took this trade, I thought, okay, well, this bull close bar is obviously going to be pretty good. It has enough room to come back in. Maybe it's going to break back into this trading range. So all that was going into my mind. I like the signal bar, and I waited for the next. I like this signal bar here. I waited for this one to close, and then I entered one tick above right here. And so the next candle takes me out. It fills me and immediately takes me out because my stop was down here. I thought it was a small risk to take. And in hindsight, when I look back, I think it's definitely counter trend. And although it's counter trend, I'm kind of picking the bottom. You know, it's not the bottom of the day, but it is kind of picking the bottom, which is a little risky, especially since it's so far from the EMA. This is not very clean because it's not a really good two clean legs, even though there is two legs to kind of assume that's going to come right back up. So unfortunately, that was a red trade. And I do see another trade here. So I count this as a new low, first entry short, second entry short. And now I'm back on board of the short trade because the EMA is holding and pressing prices back down. I really like this signal bar, and it closed right below the EMA. So those two things going for me. Plus, I didn't have this drawn at the time, but I did have, actually, I didn't have this drawn as a channel, but I did have this drawn as a resistance, and it was a little weak because I didn't quite believe it, but I said, well, it's good enough for me because it's below the EMA, it's a good signal bar, I'm going to take this trade. It's a very small candle, so the risk is manageable. So I took the trade, it ends up being green, which is great. And then this is actually well, this is what I would call a no reason trade because it's a foolish trade. What happened was I thought it was going to be a failed second entry short because it came down here, it confirmed the second entry short on this candle, then it broke up above, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be a failure. Maybe it is going to start breaking up. It's too early, though, for me to assume that. So when I saw this candle close, I jumped immediately on this candle. I put my trade one tick above, neglecting the fact that it's coming right against this support line that I had just previously drawn. On top of that, it's counter trend, and had I wanted to take a failed second entry short, I should have actually taken it one tick above here. Now, what I should have done is when this ran away from me, it's also at the top of the trading range. I should have just said, I'm going to put my order down here. Maybe it'll come back and fill me. And it would have come back and filled me on this candle. And then on this candle, when it opened low, it would have probably given me my profit and come, probably stopped out my runner. But this whole setup was just kind of like I just reacted on emotion. There was no real setup. This trade actually just shouldn't have happened because I was chasing it. So it's a lesson learned. It burned me, and I just got to be more careful. So then I do see this. It's a first entry long, second entry long here. So the second entry long, granted, I just took a losing trade. I know I'm starting to feel a little emotional, but when I saw this candle close, I immediately take a trade right here. It is kind of like not a premonition, but kind of like a repeat of what happened here. So I should have been more careful, but I took the trade here. I like the signal bar, but that was pretty much the only thing I was going off of, other than at this point I did draw this as a channel. I saw this bouncing off, signal bar. I'm going to take this trade, going to try to get back this loss. And I was entered here and I was able to scalp out. And then my runner gets stopped out because I dragged it one tick below here. And then immediately I see this higher low. So this is like another trade immediately. This is like trade number 9. And I see a higher low confirming the second entry long. It closed up high. I enter one tick above right here. My stop is down here. And I had to sweat through this. Again, this is like emotional trading because I just said, oh, well, because this is already close to the high of the trading range, which I should have just taken into account, but I was kind of feeling the smarts from here, got a winning trade here, and I thought, well, I'm just going to go ahead and hedge my bets. And it closed above the EMA, took the trade. I had to sweat through this. It never stopped me out because I was one tick below right here. And then it kind of blasted up, and that's where I was able to get my scalp, and then my runner got stopped out, I think, on this candle. And then this is, again, since I've traded so much, I know I was feeling emotional at the time. So this is my second no reason trade. Now this is late on the trade, and I actually wanted this trade when I saw these four consolidation. I counted as like a first entry long, potential second entry long, and so I wanted to take one tick above here. When it blasted through, I put my entry down here, one tick above. Never came back for me. So I immediately just said, well, this candle closed bull, so I'm going to go ahead and just enter. Just going to enter because it's going to go up on no good reason. So I entered, it fills me, it doesn't give me profit, it immediately comes back, and this candle stops me out because I had my exit or my stop right down here, and it stops me out right here. So this is what I would call a no reason trade. I was late on the entry, definitely was chasing after this breakout had already occurred because I wanted to have my entry right here of this consolidation, thinking it was going to be a breakout because the EMA was holding. But since I didn't enter the trade, the smart thing to do was for me to just let it go, but I didn't, and that's where it burned me. So this is where my red trade was. This is also where a red trade was, and this is another red trade here. So you can see in quick succession, there's just like one red trade, two greens, one red trade, one green, one red trade, two greens, another red trade. So I am like for sure on a roller coaster of emotions at this point. I see a new high, first entry long, second entry long. And now I consider this second entry long a little aggressive because it is below the EMA. And I entered right as this was engulfing on the trigger bar right here, which, I didn't want to wait for this to close out because I said, okay, there's a double bottom. It looks like it's coming back up. And so this is definitely an aggressive trade. It's a little sketchy, not what I would consider high probability, especially when I took it on the engulfing, but it turned out to work. But I need to be very careful and just remind myself to be cautious and not to take those type of trades because sooner or later they're going to bite me because it wasn't very high probability. Prices continue to move. And then actually there was another no reason trade I took right about here. And it actually worked out for me. So actually I'll just kind of, on my notes, it's happened right around right here. Let's just go take a look. Yeah, okay, so there's no reason trade. Again, this is a double top here. And I thought, okay, this is a bullish bar. I'm going to enter this trade for no good reason on the next candle, which is actually right here. And as soon as I enter, I just reminded myself, what the heck are you doing? You had two no good reason trades and they ended badly. So I immediately just exited when it's just a half a tick, not half a tick, half a point. So I was green, but I was at least aware that this was not a wise thing to do. And so I saw the double top, and that's pretty much the reason I chased it for not a good reason. And already here I was, emotional. On top of that, it's already too late in the day, and I try to make a point not to trade after 12:30 because I don't want to get stuck. And as you can see, there's just too much choppiness. I don't want to have to hold overnight or have the brokerage kick me out and try to manage trades in the pre-market or aftermarket. Just not part of my strategy. So definitely, at least I was smart enough to know this is a foolish thing to do because I already did it twice that I should get out, and both times they ended red. So that's how I saw it today. Definitely overtraded. Got a little bit on tilt today. Also broke some rules, but it was a good learning experience. So hope that was helpful.